My name is Margaret, but most people just call me Grandma Maggie. I am 75 years old, and if there's one thing I've learned in all those years, it's that life can be both kind and cruel at the same time. I've seen love lift a broken heart, and I've seen greed tear a family apart. And though my body is weaker now, my mind is sharper than ever. I always say, don't mistake slow steps for a slow spirit. The moment that would change everything for me came one quiet Sunday afternoon. I walked into my son David's backyard. The grass was freshly cut, and the smell of barbecue still lingered in the air. I had come to bring him some homemade apple pie, something he always loved as a boy. My hands shook a little as I carried the dish, not from weakness, but from excitement. I thought maybe, just maybe, today would be a good day between us. But then, heard it. A voice sharp as a knife cutting through the air. Why is she even still alive? My legs froze. My chest tightened. For a moment I thought I had misheard, but the words were repeated, quieter, almost spat out with disgust. Why is she still alive? And then came the sound of laughter. The light from the doorway sliced across the yard, sharp and blinding. My first thought was to run, to disappear before anyone noticed me standing there with shards of broken pie dish at my feet. But my legs betrayed me. They felt like they were made of stone. Out stepped a woman, tall, with red hair shining under the porch light. She wasn't family, and I didn't recognize her at first, but she carried herself like someone who belonged. She was holding a tray of drinks, and when her eyes landed on me, they widened, just for a moment, before she forced a smile. "Oh," she said softly. "I didn't know you were here." The words hung in the air, but her tone said more. It wasn't surprise, it was warning. Her eyes darted toward the group by the fire pit, then back to me, as though urging me to stay quiet, to slip away unseen. But it was too late. David had already turned. "Mom!" His voice cracked slightly, though he masked it quickly with a laugh. "What are you doing here?" I tried to answer, but nothing came out. My throat was dry as desert sand. All I could do. The man's voice rumbled through the kitchen like thunder. "Why is she here?" he demanded again, this time sharper, angrier. David's jaw tightened. He took a step forward, placing himself between the man and me. "It's fine," he said quickly, almost too quickly. "She just stopped by." The stranger's eyes didn't leave mine. They were cold, dark, and filled with something I couldn't place. Fear, maybe, or calculation. Either way, it made my skin crawl. "Stopped by," the man repeated slowly, like he didn't believe a word. "That's not good enough, David. She wasn't supposed to know anything." My heart skipped a beat. "Know anything? About what?" "I don't know anything," I spoke up, my voice shaking but firm. "I came with pie. That's all." The man gave a low laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Pie. Cute." He turned back to David, his expression hardening. "You better handle this. Now." The tension was so heavy I could barely breathe. For the first time, I saw real fear in my son's face. The note on the floor looked harmless, just a scrap of paper taped to a brick, but to me it felt heavier than any stone. My knees nearly gave out as I stared at those 5 words. She wasn't supposed to see. David picked it back up, pacing the room like a trapped animal. "This is bad," he muttered under his breath. "This is really bad." I steadied myself on the edge of the couch, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "David," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "Listen to me. Panic won't help us. Who put this here? Was it Victor?" He ran a hand through his hair, eyes darting from the broken window to me. "It has to be. He's making it clear. He doesn't want you involved." "Well," I said firmly, "too late for that." For a moment we just looked at each other. Him, frightened, restless, and cornered. Me, tired, older, but rooted like an oak tree in a storm. I may have been 75, but I wasn't about to crumble. The silence stretched until David finally sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. The room went so still I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Victor stood like a shadow in the doorway. his presence filling every corner of the house. His words, "whether you live to see tomorrow," hung in the air like a blade ready to drop. David's face paled, but he stepped forward anyway, placing himself between us. "Leave her out of this," he said, his voice trembling but firm. Victor's cold laugh rattled through the room. "Leave her out. David, your mother has walked straight into the middle of this mess. She heard what she shouldn't, she saw what she shouldn't. That makes her part of it." His eyes shifted back to me, piercing and merciless. "So here's the choice, Margaret. You can keep quiet, pretend none of this ever happened, and maybe you'll get to keep that sweet little life of yours. Or," he leaned closer, his breath hot, "you can open your mouth and I'll make sure your son, his wife, and those precious grandchildren of yours suffer for it." Every word stabbed like ice. The front door swayed in the wind, the night air whispering into the hallway. My breath caught in my throat. I knew in my bones that this wasn't just the breeze playing tricks. Someone had been here. I crept closer, my bare feet making no sound against the wooden floor. The door hung half open, the latch bent as though forced. My heart thundered in my chest, but I forced myself to push the door wider and step onto the porch. The yard was silent. The moon cast long shadows across the grass. The fire pit where David's friends had been sitting earlier was empty now, the embers glowing faintly in the darkness. But there, at the edge of the yard, movement. Figure. Tall, hooded, standing unnaturally still. Watching. For a heartbeat, we just stared at each other, the night air thick with unspoken threat. Then, without a sound, the figure raised a hand and pointed directly at me. Slowly, deliberately, and then vanished into the shadows. The pounding on the front door shook the frame, each thud heavier than the last. It wasn't the kind of knock that waited for permission. It was the kind that announced we're coming in whether you like it or not. David stood frozen by the kitchen counter, his face pale as chalk. I, on the other hand, felt a surge of something fierce and stubborn. Fear, yes, but also defiance. I'd lived long enough to know when a bully was testing the ground. "Stay here," I whispered to David, though I knew he wouldn't. I walked down the hallway, each step slow, deliberate, my hand brushing the wall for balance. The knocking stopped, and the silence that followed was worse. I opened the door just a crack, the chain still hooked, and peered out. 2 men stood on the porch. Not Victor this time. Younger, rough-looking, wearing leather jackets despite the mild night. Their faces were sharp with arrogance, their eyes cold. "Evening, Grandma," one of them said, smirking. "We're here for a little The black car idled at the curb, its engine purring like some sleek animal waiting to strike. David and I crouched behind the curtain, watching as the door swung fully open. A man stepped out. Mid-50s, tall, with a tailored suit that whispered money and power. His hair was slicked back, silver at the temples. This was no street thug. His presence alone carried weight, the kind that made men like Victor nervous. David muttered under his breath, "What on earth?" The man didn't head for the front door. Instead, he walked calmly to the mailbox, slipped something inside, and returned to his car. The engine roared softly, and just as quickly as he had come, he was gone. We stayed frozen a moment longer before I whispered, "Check it." David shook his head. "What if it's a trap? Then better to know than to wonder." My voice was firm. Together we crept out to the mailbox. The street was quiet, neighbors, the figure outside lingered. His shadow stretched across the windowpane like a stain. I ducked low, heart pounding, every nerve alive. Whoever he was, he wasn't in a hurry. He wanted me to know he was there. I crept down the hallway, quiet as breath, and reached the back door. From the pantry I grabbed the old iron skillet, heavy in my hand. At 75 I couldn't outrun anyone, but I could still swing. The shadow shifted. I pressed my back to the wall, every muscle tense. The doorknob rattled, slowly, deliberately. My grip on the skillet tightened. But then, silence. When I peeked again, the figure was gone. Vanished like mist. I stayed awake, sitting by the window, every sound amplified. The tick of the clock, the rustle of the trees, the distant hum of traffic. My thoughts were with David at the docks, fear gnawing at me like a rat in the dark. Hours bled into each other until headlights swept across the driveway. I shot up, pressing to the glass. David's car rolled in, slow, careful. Relief surged until I saw his face. He stumbled inside, pale and trembling, eyes wide as if he'd stared into the mouth of something monstrous. "What happened?" I demanded, rushing to steady him. He sank into a chair, clutching his head. "It wasn't about Victor. It never was." His voice cracked. "He isn't a rival. He's above them all. Victor answers to him. They all do." Froze. "Then what does he want with you?" David's hands shook as he pulled the letter from his pocket, tossing it on the table. "He doesn't want the money back. He wants me." My blood chilled. "What do you mean, wants you?" His laugh was hollow, broken. "He said I've been on their radar. That I have a talent. Numbers, patterns. All those nights I thought I was gambling. He said I was being tested. And now I either work for them or..." His voice trailed off, but I didn't need him to finish. The kitchen felt smaller, the air heavier. My son, my foolish, desperate son, was being pulled into something darker than I'd ever imagined. I slammed the skillet down on the counter, the sound sharp and final. "No," I said fiercely. "They don't get to decide that. You are not theirs to use." David looked at me,